and thank you for joining me. We are today thinking about power and conflict poetry. That's paper 2 for AQA GCSE English Literature. And in the time that you're here for, you're going to hear about the poem. There'll be a reading of it. We'll think about what it's about, some of the key moments, form and structure, and you'll have a flashcard as well as some model examples of responses for you to take away. Okay. Today we're thinking about Remains by Simon Armitage. It's a really powerful poem about a modern soldier's experience of war. The speaker is a soldier who's ended the life of a looter and has returned home completely destroyed by those experiences, and these feelings of guilt and remorse are really destructive and overpowering, and the speaker cannot get away from revisiting that really destructive and powerful moment. Here is a reading of Remains. So we'll have a little look at the poem and then we'll start doing some analysis of it. Okay, Remains by Simon Armitage. On another occasion we get sent out to tackle looters raiding a bank, and one of them legs it up the road, probably armed, possibly not. While myself and somebody else are all of the same mind. So all three of us open fire, three of a kind, all let him fly, and I swear I see every round as it rips through his life. I see broad daylight on the other side. So he hit this looter a dozen times and he's there on the ground, sort of inside out. Pain itself, the image of agony. One of my mates goes by and tosses his guts back into his body. Then he's carted off in the back of a lorry. End of story, except not really. His blood shadow stays on the street and out on patrol. I walk right over it week after week. Then I'm home on leave, but I blink and he bursts again through the doors of the bank. Sleep, and he's probably armed and possibly not. Dream, and he's torn apart by a dozen rounds, and the drink and the drugs won't flush him out. He's here in my head when I close my eyes, dug in behind enemy lines, not left for dead in some distant sun-stunned, sand-smothered land, or 6 feet under in desert sand, but near to the knuckle, here and now, his bloody life in my bloody hands. Okay, we need to think about how we're going to structure our response when it comes to the examination. If Remains is the name poem, you'll have a copy of it in front of you, and your job will be to choose another poem to be able to compare it to. Now, your first paragraph, if you want a simple way of responding to this section of the examination, your first paragraph should be quite straightforward and can show the examiner that you understand the theme that's been named in the question and you've got a bit of understanding of the poem. So tell us what they're about and be concise. Just keep it quite simple. Show us you know what the poem's about and link them to the theme that's named in the question. So here's an example from me. Remains is a poem from a soldier's perspective. The speaker's killed a looter and returns home questioning his actions. Armitage spoke with soldiers about the experiences of war, which was the influence for this poem. So there, just got a couple of sentences, and in them I've shown that I understand what the poem's about, understand a little bit of context, and I've linked it to the poem if we say that this asks us to explore how war is presented in Remains. So I'd need to do that for both poems, and that's my opening paragraph. After I've explored the poems, I'm going to explore structure. The chief examiner has recommended that this is how students approach the examination, so it makes sense for you to, after you've introduced your choices of poetry, then explore the structure in both of them. You'll have ticked that box and you'll have explored form and structure, which is certainly something you need to do to tick the AO2 requirements for this section of the exam. So your second paragraph tells us about the structure in each of the poems. Can you make a comment on the rhyme scheme or the metre of each poem? Try and link that to the theme that's named in the question. The structure Remains helps to emphasise the speaker's frame of mind. He's lost his sense of self and his life has been thrown into chaos, which is reflected by the lack of regular rhyme and the use of irregular metre. So we have got some rhyme, but that's not, there's not a consistent use of couplets in the poem, and the irregular metre sort of reflects that sort of sense of chaos that is the life of this speaker. That's sort of reflected by the structural choices from Armitage. You may have in your lessons with your teachers underlined and annotated every single line and key phrase in the poem. But if we be realistic, when you're in the examination and you're writing your essay response, you're not going to have the time to be responding to every single element of the poem. You're not going to be using 7 or 8 references from each poem, and that's not needed. What you do need to do is show that you can make some really confident points about a few of the poems. So you can take this and screenshot it and keep it, and this is a great flashcard for you. So if Remains is a poem that you want to learn and know confidently, knowing these 4 key references makes sense. So in the top right hand corner there, we've got His bloody life in my bloody hands. Above it is some analysis, but to walk you through that reference, the poem ends with that line. And that metaphor, his bloody life in my bloody hands, is really effective because that image of bloody hands reminds us of Lady Macbeth. It's an intertextual reference to that character in Shakespeare's Macbeth. Lady Macbeth's involved in killing a king, if you don't know Macbeth. And the guilt destroys her and she takes her own life. So ending the poem with this line sort of links the speaker's frame of mind to that Lady Macbeth, and it makes us think that maybe this person is feeling the same way, destroyed by guilt, and maybe considering taking their own life. Underneath that, we've got one of my mates goes by and tosses his guts back into his body. Armitage doesn't choose to use any figurative language here. There's no metaphor, there's nothing ambiguous, it's just direct and stark and arresting. And it's really clever the way that he does this. It's meant to be explicit and shocking. And we've got the verb tosses there. It almost reflects the idea that war is responsible for disregard for life, and that's something that the speaker feels responsible for. Possibly armed, probably not is repeated in the poem, and that emphasises the idea that the soldier's constantly questioning that decision, like having come home. It's something that he's wrestling with and cannot resolve. And another line that is wonderful and certainly worth making note of is, I see every round as it rips through his life. That moment where the soldier takes the looter's life. And we've got alliteration here. I see every round as it rips through his life. And that alliteration almost reflects the sounds of those gunshots, as if that's a memory that the speaker can't escape from. But as well as that verb rips just reflects that idea of destruction. This looter's life has been destroyed, but this moment has also destroyed the life of the speaker. So this flashcard has got those 4 key references there for you. Knowing those 4 references really confidently makes a lot of sense, because in the exam, if you're able to use and refer to, I'd say 4 references from each poem that you choose, that's certainly going to help you to access that top band if that's what you're looking to achieve. So you have here the assessment objectives. I'm not going to dwell on these, but there's something that you can look at. You can always pause this video and go back. You've got the poem to look back on. You've also got that flashcard and those model responses. And here are the outcomes. We've got the different levels that you should be aiming to achieve. If you're looking for a 4 or above, you want to be aiming for that level 4 and looking at those outcomes. And there are the top outcomes for level 5 and 6. You can have a little look over those yourself. You can pause this video and familiarise yourself with them and have a little look at how you need to arrive at that mark. Feel free to have a little bit of a look back over this video, listen to this again, and then definitely see if you can, by memory, write down those key quotes for Remains and be able to make that comment about structure. And that's what you need to do for this poem to ready yourself for the examination, should this be the named poem.